Is that 59? Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to the October 17th, 2022 Finance Committee meeting. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. If you could please make sure your cell phones are either on mute or vibrate. For those on Zoom, Councilman Escabel is present. I believe Mr. Johnson and Dr. Aldridge are both present via Zoom. And those who are going to make public comment, if you could please approach the table and identify yourself when you do that, we'd certainly appreciate it. And with that, I would call on the clerk to please read the first item on the agenda today.
Number 10, ordinance, third reading, amending section 9.08.020, annoying, obscene, or threatening telephone calls of chapter 9.08, offenses against public peace and decency of Title 9, Public Peace and Welfare of the Municipal Code of the City of Cheyenne, Wyoming, modifying the elements of the offense of annoying, obscene, or threatening telephone calls.
Staff report.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, John Brody, Deputy City Attorney. Nothing to report on this ordinance. It's gone through your process and we haven't received any comments or requests for changes. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brody, stand by. Are there comments from or questions from members of the public?
I don't see hands raised again.
Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve on third and final reading.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of this ordinance on third reading, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item, please. Thank you, Mr. Brody.
Number 20, resolution approving water and sanitary sewer services by outside user water and sanitary sewer services agreement for Wyoming King Gold Mining Company Incorporated for all section 36, Township 14 North, range 70 west of the 6 p.m. Laramie County, Wyoming.
Staff report.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and Finance Committee members. My name is Brad Brooks. I'm the Director for Board of Public Utilities, and I have Frank Strong here with me, who's our Engineering and Water Resource Manager. In the audience, I also have Governor Friedenthal and George B., who are both representing GK Gold. And what we have before us today is a outside user application for GK Gold's mining facility that'll be located west of town. This is a facility where they'll be processing gold. In the application that you've seen, I think originally, here back probably a month ago, in discussions with Councilman Johnson, it was discovered that there was a wrong amount in their estimated monthly water usage. In there, it said up to 600 gallons per minute max. That's basically what we approved it at, and that is the correct number, but they had a wrong number for their monthly water usage. The new number that everybody should have, and that was submitted, is 25,920,000 gallons a day. This facility, if they use the 600 gallons per minute throughout the year, will be approximately about 968 acre feet of water. For the Board of Public Utilities, this is something we are also working with them on. In fact, we have a signed agreement with them for the water usage, but we will not be signing that until actually it goes through council and council approves the whole application. But in that application, there is a termination date, which is January of 2037. So that permit would actually be terminated and the actual services into our system would actually be terminated. So unlike any other outside user agreement, when we do that, it's for eternity or as long as that infrastructure, that building is there.
Okay.
This would be different. And in that 15-year period, which the agreement is for, after that, those services would be terminated and that water amount that they would use would no longer be used, and that would be water that would be available to the city. So basically we get that water back. For the board, this is a great opportunity for us in system development fees, excuse me. Right now in today's numbers, it's an approximation of about $5 million. And then with their usage over the year, that's a little over $1 million a year in revenue. So we're talking probably 15+ million dollars that would be able to come to the board. Our plan is to use that to begin developing resources out on the Belvoir. In fact, we've already made an application to get some grant funding to do that and start to develop some of the wells with the water situations that we have coming for us with Colorado River. One other thing I would like to add on the agreement that we have with them is there is clauses in that pertain to either drought or curtailment if that occurs on the Colorado River, where if they will be treated just like everybody else in town if we have to make cutbacks. But what we did write in there, if they want to continue to operate at the 600 gallons per minute, they will have to find additional water resources to make that happen that we approve on. So, it can't just be any water. It's a source that we need to approve on. And then they can continue to operate at that amount during those times, whether it be curtailment or drought. Anything else you'd like to add, Frank, that I did not include? Did that cover everything? So with that, open it up for any questions you may have, and hopefully, there is one other. What the comment I did make on the application, we do need to state, because in here, and it's probably on the resolution as well, it says with Wyoming King Gold Mining Company, and the actual legal in the agreement and in the application, it should be Gold King Corp. Right. So we need to make that change on any documents moving forward. So I just wanted to bring that up. And then also, and I mentioned this with Chairman before the meeting, just to cover all bases, we did take this application before our board a month ago. They approved that. It was based on the 600 gallons per minute. But today, just to be safe, to cover all bases, we're going to take that application back to our board just to get approval with the 600 plus the new monthly water usage. So we can say that they have approved the actual correct document. So that'll be done at our board meeting that actually occurs this afternoon at 3. So with that, I take any questions that council may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brooks and Mr. Strong, for being here. In communication about this particular item, I think as chairman, the best course forward was to proceed with this item without making a motion. That way there would be no recommendation from the finance committee at the meeting of the full governing body next Monday night. And my understanding is that we would then receive an amendment that would correct all of the items that Mr. Brooks just referred to. So there was the Scrivener error on the number of gallons, monthly gallons, and then also the term where it should be Gold King Corp and not Wyoming King Gold. And if that normally was the procedure, there wouldn't be any public comment allowed. However, in my role as chairman, I will allow public comment on this particular item. So
Public and committee comment.
Public and committee comment. Thank you, Jen. So with that, are there any questions or comments from members of the public?
I don't have any hands raised over here. I do have a committee member's hand raised, just for your attention.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Dr. Rennie.
as a point of order, can you clarify, you really can't do it without a motion. You have to have a motion that fails 2-1 and goes with no recommendation.
Chair to approve.
Yes.
If you can't advance something without a motion, then it would die with it.
Okay. We'll go ahead and then ask for a motion anyway. As there is no comments or questions from members of the public, do I have a motion from the committee?
Motion.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve.
Is there a second? Okay, there is no second, therefore there will be no motion or recommendation at the meeting of the governing body. So the item will go forward next Monday with no recommendation from the finance committee. Thanks all. Next item.
Number 22, resolution authorizing the mayor to execute all necessary documents related to the transfer, purchase, and sale of a specified portion of the property located at 1720 Cleveland Avenue.
Staff report.
Good afternoon, Chair, and Committee, John Copper, Fire Chief. The item you have before you today authorizes the mayor to execute all necessary documents for the conveyance of Fire Station number 3, 1720 Cleveland Avenue. It was identified in title work that a reverter clause existed with the property at 1720 Cleveland Avenue. The language did stipulate that prior written approval was needed to be obtained from the State and Federal Highway Commission before the city could convey the property to another party. The mayor and staff have worked with YDOT and the Federal Highway Commission to obtain permission. An appraisal of the land only was accomplished on September 16th and valued at $570,000 or $6 a square foot. On October 20th, this Thursday, the commission will meet and grant permission to terminate the quitclaim deed for the appraised value of the land. This will give us the ability to finalize the trade of the land as previously approved by the governing body for the new station location at Whitney Road in Countryside. 1% special purpose tax will be utilized. Staff respectfully request approval, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Stand by. Comments or questions from members of the public?
I don't see anyone.
Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Mr. Chair, I move to amend by substitute dated October 17th, 2022.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to amend by substitute. We did receive some documentation earlier this morning on the substitute. Want to touch on that, Chief, just real quick?
Yes, sir, Chair. The substitute just gives more flexibility to the mayor to execute the title work. It gives more options. Mr. Brody can expand on that if we need to.
Mr. Brody, for the record, could you do so, please?
So, Mr. Chairman, John Brody again with the city attorney's office. We've been having discussions on the transfer of this property as late as Friday afternoon and how to best effectuate that transfer. Currently, the resolution identifies a kind of cumbersome process whereby the property goes to the state of Wyoming and then comes right back to us. What the substitute allows for is it preserves that option, but it also authorizes an option whereby we instead just secure the written approval of the state. So the property doesn't ever change hands, but the $570,000, I guess, piece of consideration remains the same. So it really just opens a second route so that we can get the fire stations moving forward.
Okay, thank you for that information.
No problem.
Any comments or questions on the amendment? Hearing none. There's a motion and a second on to amend by substitute. All those in favor to amend by substitute, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
The amendment moves, the motion to amend by substitute moves forward with Mr. Johnson voting no. We're back on the main motion. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
That item moves forward with Mr. Johnson voting no. Thanks, Chief. Next item, please.
Number 23G, contract between the City of Cheyenne, Office of Youth Alternatives, and the Laramie County Community Juvenile Services Joint Power Board for community services, case management services provided in the municipal court as sentencing alternatives for juveniles.
Staff report, please.
Mr. Chair and committee members, good afternoon. Jay Sullivan, Director of Youth Alternatives. Hopefully you can hear me.
I can hear you just fine, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. The item before the committee today is the contract between the Joint Services Power Board, Youth Alternatives to provide the community services which are vital to the municipal court sentencing alternatives for our juveniles that are appearing before the municipal court. These services were in place in the past. It was back, I believe, about a year and a half or so ago that the state had cut funding to the Joint Services Power Boards, which did impact the services we were providing. Those funds have been restored by the state to the Joint Services Power Boards and are being passed along to us once again to be able to provide these services to the municipal court. With that, I'll stand by for any questions.
Thanks, Jay. Stand by. Comments or questions from members of the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve an amount not to exceed $148,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of this contract, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 23H, agreement between the City of Cheyenne and the Wyoming Department of Transportation, WYDOT, for a Wyoming Rural Public Transportation Grant to assist in providing a local match for operating funds for the transit program for fiscal year 2023.
Staff report.
Public Works, Vicki Novacek. This is an agreement with YDOT to provide $300,000 of state funds to use as our, as match to our basically $2 million grant from FTA. This $300,000 is an increase that we budgeted for and received $160,000 last year. This is an increase because YDOT got extra money and decided to give us some of it. So it will reduce our requirement for match money from our city. Request approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Vicki. Stand by. Comments or questions from members of the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
Chair, I move to approve an amount not to exceed $300,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments or questions from the committee?
I think we take more if they.
I would hope.
I think the contract says.
If
not
we
to
do a
exceed.
not to exceed, if we do, okay.
I think the contract does, because I've been trying to check closer and
Okay.
keep an eye on that, but I think it didn't say.
As there is no comments or questions from the committee, all those in favor of this agreement between the City of Cheyenne and WYDOT, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Thanks, Vicki.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Professional services agreement between the City of Cheyenne and AVI PC for the design of the Powderhouse Road and Carlson Street intersection project from 2018 to 2022 optional 1% tax fund.
Staff report.
Good afternoon, Westway Engineering. This is a professional service agreement between the city and AVI PC for the design of Powderhouse Road and Carlson intersection. Going to include ADA upgrades, lane reconfiguration, and signalization of the intersection. I recommend approval of this contract, and I'm available for any questions.
Thanks, Wes. Stand by. Comments or questions from members of the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
Chair, I move to approve an amount not to exceed $189,132.50.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments or questions from the committee?
When you're ready.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
So Carlson and Powder House, isn't that the intersection? Is that north or south of the school? Or is it right out of Carlson into the school?
At Carlson, through you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Carlson leads directly into the school.
Okay, so I guess as far as design concept, did the school district, when they laid out their final plat and everything, wasn't that already completed, or what is it we're actually doing here that the school district may not have already handled?
The school did.
It's okay, go
The
ahead.
school district didn't do any design of the intersection aside from just the ADA connectivity leading up to the intersection.
Okay, so we're just basically finishing up on the west side of Carlson and then the north-south corridor on Powder House, and then kind of just tying in for what the school did for their part. Is that what we're doing here?
For you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that is correct. And adding signals too.
Okay, I guess, are we to, because it doesn't really, it's not really germane on a design, but are we to expect something in the future in regards to this signaling that's gonna come out of our funding, or is that something you guys are working with like you typically do with school districts that that's gonna be a joint operation?
For you, Mr. Chair. An agreement was already established with the school previous to this design, but as I believe it's section 21 develops out, we will be requesting reimbursement from the developers as the traffic increases due to those developments. So we will be reimbursed for a portion of the costs.
But that would be a future thing. That's not necessarily the design. That would be actually the construction, correct?
That is correct. As that section develops, we will request reimbursement from the developers.
Okay, awesome. I have nothing more, Jeff.
Thanks, Richard. Great question. Other comments or questions from the committee?
Dr. Aldridge.
Dr. Aldridge, go ahead.
Chairman White, through you, I just had a question. I know that Councilman Cook from Ward 2 has been concerned and has raised the question many times about buses and how that was going to roll out in this intersection and around the school area. And I just want to make sure that we've somehow taken care of and into account getting those buses off of Powder House and onto Carlson, onto school property somehow, so that we're not creating traffic nightmare there at that intersection.
Mr. Bay, anything to add there?
For you, we'll vet that during the design process.
Certainly a legitimate concern there.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none. All those in favor of this professional services agreement, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Thanks, Wes. Next item, please.
Number 23J, professional services agreement between the city of Cheyenne and Roadway Asset Services LLC for the pavement condition survey and rehabilitation strategy project from 2018 to 2022 optional 1% tax fund.
Staff report.
West Bay Engineering, before you is a professional services agreement with Roadway Asset Services for the collection of data, the analysis of the data, and assistance in developing pavement maintenance and rehabilitation strategies throughout the city of Cheyenne. I recommend approval of this contract, and I'm available for any questions.
Stand by, Wes. Thank you. Comments or questions from members of the public?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Laborn.
of course, I'm not a member of the public. I'm a member of the council. But I do have a comment here that isn't really about the approval of this contract, which I assume will be approved and is very necessary. So we know the condition of the pavement. But we recently had a work session about the ability to get information out to people through electronic means. And I hope that we keep this in mind as this is developed, so that this can be part of that information. It would be great if everybody could go to our site or in some manner and look at and understand the condition of the streets throughout the city through this analysis. And at the present time, you can't do that. You have to kind of dig around and ask. It's certainly the previous pavement management analysis is there, but it would be so much more effective and I think helpful to us in terms of explaining our programs if it was up and available along with a number of other documents as our technology committee recommended. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Laybourne, and I agree on that. Other comments or questions from the public?
Mr. Chairman,
Dr. Rennie?
Mark Rainey, 2101 ODA. I just had a question on, once we have all this compiled, is this what the engineering department's going to use for the monies that we've, were in the last special purpose tax, or, I mean, is it going to be our roadmap on how we fix our roads, I guess is the question.
I would expect so. Go ahead.
Yes, they'll collect the data, analyze it. We'll work with the consultant to develop maintenance sections. And we will be over the next 4 years following the strategies that we come up with the consultant. So the survey takes place every 4 years.
Okay. I did not remember, seeing this come through before, so.
What that brings to mind another question that I have, Wes, is so with this agreement, are we still utilizing paver?
No, through you.
Because paver was something that was really highly touted, and it was something that was used by YDOT and the military. And so I'm just kind of wonder how this all interconnects. I see Mr. Cobb joining us too.
This is a proprietary software package developed by Roadway Asset Services. Paver was actually not used by YDOT. Paver was developed by the military.
Okay.
But this software that they have is a lot more robust, a lot more user friendly,
Okay.
More powerful.
Okay. Mr. Cobb, you have anything
Mr.
to add?
Chairman, just as a clarification, so it doesn't mean we're abandoning what we were using. We're still utilizing paver as well, but this package goes on top of it, works in conjunction with paver.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Much appreciated. Thanks for the clarification, Mr. Cobb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Rennie. Other comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve an amount not to exceed $149,503.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments or questions from members of the committee?
When you're ready.
Go ahead, Richard, and my apologies. I asked my question out of line, so my apologies.
You're
Go
fine.
ahead, Mr. Johnson.
So I guess hearing Wes say that, so was our last survey, was that, because I thought it was in 2016, so are we overdue, or was the last study submitted in 2018?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
It was done in 2018. And we'll be picking up this next survey spring of 2023.
Okay, so then 4 years. So the next time we can expect to see this is 2027. Is that right? Or kind of following along, like 2026 is when you guys would do what we're doing now, and then it would go into implementation in 2027?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the survey will take place in 2023 and will develop maintenance and rehabilitation strategies up until the next 4 years. And at that time, a condition assessment will be done again, and we'll repeat the process.
Okay, I guess a follow-up. So with this software, and from what Tom had told Jeff, so are we rolling over a lot of our data? Did we find out from our 2018 survey, did we find out a lot of information on what we were either doing correct, doing wrong, materials that we were using, all that we're rolling over into this new system? And is this new one going to kind of steer us in a different direction over the next 4 years?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We can use the old data with this new software as well. We're not going to go in a completely different direction. We're just going to evaluate the roadways based off the pavement condition in the index and, try to develop a more robust maintenance system.
Okay.
Mr. Cobb, do you have anything? Hang on, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Cobb, anything to add to that?
Mr. Chairman, through you to Councilman Johnson. The only thing I would add is that I want to make sure there's not a misunderstanding. We're not changing any techniques we're doing. This is just a better way to analyze the condition index and prioritize our streets. So with this particular, if I can explain this without having a slide in front of me, the basics are, we're trying to find the last 25% right before a pavement changes to the next level down. And this software will help us do that. So we're using the same data. They're collecting the information. The software package then just helps us analyze better. We had to do it all by hand before. We couldn't analyze those lower 25%. It's going to take all the data, do that for us. Does that make sense, Councilman Johnson?
Yeah, it does. And I guess just as far as data collection, are we planning on using that drone because weren't we going to do drone work because couldn't it do like depths and stuff like that on how damaged our pavement was even underneath the surface?
Chairman, through you to Councilman Johnson, not drone. It's a van based. There's laser systems on that. There's cameras and lasers that do the measurements. So there's a piece in the front. There's a picture of it in the package and you can see it. And there's also it also takes sophisticated, I guess, detailed photos as well. Anything to add, Wes? I don't think there's pretty much, yeah. This has been a little bit different since the last one. The technology has increased quite a bit, so they can take more accurate measurements using that system.
Yeah,
That's all I got, Jeff.
Okay, and just for some information, the picture of the vehicle is on page 1 of our packets. Kind of looks like the Google vehicle that drives around and does all the map data. Any other comments or questions from the committee?
Dr. Aldridge does have a question.
Dr. Aldridge, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman White, through you. I was just curious, in reading through all the information from this company, it did talk about some add-ons, and I was wondering if we were doing any of the add-ons. I didn't see that in the contract. And then the other piece I was wondering was if this was going to be compatible with the new software packages that we're purchasing for the city, so that it would be fully integrated with the software that we're currently in the process of purchasing from OpenGov.
Go ahead, Mr. Cobb.
So, Chairman, through you to Dr. Aldridge. Dr. Aldridge, it's funny you should ask this because one of the reasons we chose this particular company is because this is exactly what we want to do. The cardiograph that we're purchasing with OpenGov works specifically with them, and they've worked with them before. So when I talked about how paver working in conjunction with this software then works in conjunction with cardiograph, and then we're going to have this dashboard mechanism to be transparent, as Councilman Laybourne has indicated. So all of these things are going to work together. So that's exactly why we chose this company. And then I don't remember your first question now. I'm sorry.
My question was, it listed a bunch of add-ons that are available through this company with the initial package purchase. And I was just wondering if we were going to have any of those add-on features.
Mr. Cobb.
Chairman White, through you to Dr. Aldridge. Dr. Aldridge, we had looked at that initially, but I think based on the cost, I'm not sure we decided to choose all of them. I think we did look at one, and I'm trying to remember if it was pavement markings or what did we end up adding, Mr. Beck? You remember?
I did see this from the center line marking. Is that the one you're referring to?
I'm trying to remember now, just 1 second. I think with the cost, Dr. Aldridge, we were looking at maybe just the first one, just to see how much extra it would actually be. So we're going to implement them as we go, but we were really focused on the pavement first. And then you can also look at curb and gutter and sidewalk as well. But we were going to experiment with that on a limited basis before we just said do the whole thing. The cost was pretty exuberant.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions from the committee? Thank you, Mr. Cobb.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Escabel.
how much did we pay 4 years ago?
Mr. Chair, through years, I don't know. That was before I was at the city, the last time it was done.
Mhm.
I can get you that information though.
If you could.
Sure,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. That would be helpful. Other comments or questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
We have a motion.
Oh, sorry. We do have a motion. As there are no other comments or questions, all those in favor of this professional services agreement, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. As there are no other items on today's agenda, this meeting is adjourned. If I'd have known how cold it would be, I would have had